Let's say we decided, because we're close to the beach, we're like, hey, let's take this affair to the beach. Now that's a very specific environment. And as such, it requires a very specific strategy. So what would be our strategy to ensure that we enjoy our time at the beach? What would we need to bring with us? Umbrella? What else? Towels? Swim trunks, don't want to be naked. What else? Sunscreen, it's very important. What else? Food, what else? Beer. Now, anybody besides me ever forget a critical component of that strategy when you went to the beach? Now let's say we decided to shift environments. And we said, hey, this beach thing is cool. Now I want to go skiing. And I'm like, hey guys, I'm going to put you all on a plane. We're going to take this to a ski lodge. That is a very different environment that requires a very different strategy and set of tools. So what would our strategy be for that environment? Overalls, what else? Snow boots. Snow boots, what else? Snowboard. Beanie. What would happen if we tried to use the strategy for the beach for skiing? What would your experience be like? Not enjoyable, right? Now here's what I see happening. I see agents utilizing a strategy or strategies that they were using 2 years ago in a completely different environment for this environment and wondering why they're not getting the same results. Well, I first started selling real estate in 2006. Now that was a very specific economic and therefore real estate environment. Who here was selling real estate at that time? Oh, good. A good number of people. It was great. Why? Because they had a loan product that said, hey, you could basically say, I make 150,000 bucks. And they were like, I believe you. Right? That's unbelievable. And prices were going up 20, 30%. Everybody had FOMO, fear of missing out. They're taking out equity lines to buy other properties because they think it always, right? Okay. So I started selling real estate in 2006 after graduating from the University of Florida. And at that time in college, what the marketplace was giving me was condo conversions. Anybody remember condo conversions? What they would do is buy a 50-year-old pig, put some lipstick on it, and sell the units, right? To the parents and saying, hey, this is an investment. When your kids graduate, it'll be worth something, right? So I sold a lot of those. And then 2008 happened. What caused it to change was a financial collapse. We had huge, large financial institutions disappearing off the planet. In my state, 50% of everything on the market was a short sale or foreclosure. In my county, there were 22,000 properties on the market for sale. Prices going down in the opposite direction, 20, 30% per year. And I didn't know how I needed to change my strategy because I'd been using this other strategy at 26 years old, make 150,000 bucks thinking I'm the man. And then that strategy disappears and it's no longer applicable. So what I did is I got access to a guide. Call that person a mentor, a coach, who could point me in the direction of where the opportunities were. Because you see, at that time, something exploded in the market. What explodes when there's 22,000 properties on the market for sale? Expired listings. They were at the highest they've ever been in history. I grew my business by 25% year over year. And after 4 years was doing 100 transactions and 75 were expireds. I changed my what? Strategy. Does that make sense to you guys? And I believe that everybody here with the right strategy and knowing where to look can continue to, you could dominate any marketplace, including this one, which has changed radically. Has anybody noticed that the environment's changed radically? In preparation for coming, me and Joe were talking about it, I looked at numbers for the county where you guys do business. 2021, this last month that we just passed, there were 7,500 transactions. This year in 2024, there's 4,500. It's gone down 58%. I see a lot of heads nodding. That is an accurate assessment of reality. Huh? We're going to go over what's happening briefly, why it's happening, right? Approximately how long that's going to persist for. Anybody notice that like 5 months ago, everybody started posting that rates were going to come down 5 or 6 times in 2024? Hey, let me ask you a question. Have they? Not once. Okay? That's agents hoping that it gets a lot easier to do business. Right? So what's happening? Why is it happening? And then more importantly, what strategies are actually working? Is this making sense? So that way everybody can continue, because you guys are all top producers, you can continue to get your unfair share because it's not the fastest, according to Darwin, or the quickest, or the smartest, or the prettiest, or the one with the most followers. It's the ones that are the most adaptive to what? Change. Does that make sense? All right, cool. Who's up for this AI? I'm sorry, I didn't fly from Fort Lauderdale for that level of energy. Who's up for this AI? Okay, so what's happening? Well, who knows what percentage of homeowners have an interest rate less than 6%? 90%. We will shop for 3 hours to save $100 on Amazon. Why are we hallucinating that somebody's going to trade their 3% for 7%? Why would they do that? Only for a very specific reason. What I would call a life event. Who wants to give me examples of life events?
Divorce.
Divorce? What else?
Death.
Death. What else?
Retirement.
Retirement. Job relocations. Moving to assisted living facilities. Moving to be closer to family. Downsizing, right? So remember how I shared with you how I did all those expireds? What happened in 2011? Marketplace got good. What happens to expireds? Do you think I just very maturely said, oh, I need to pivot and change? You think that's what I did? No, what do you guys do when you don't get what you want? You throw a temper tantrum just like children do. This isn't fair. Why should I have to change? But then I pivoted to probates. I live in heaven's waiting room, team. I have the largest elderly population in the country. And you know what that did? I went from 100 deals to 200 deals. All because I was willing to, you could just answer this yourself. Doesn't have to be out loud. We're all friends here. What percentage of what you're doing have you changed in the last 18 to 24 months? Be honest. Interesting. Is it mature to imagine that I cannot change and still get my unfair share? No. Essentially, I'm waiting. I'm praying to the real estate gods. Please change. Make sense? So that's actually what's happening. What's also happening is that volume, we went from 6 million across the country to 4 million transactions. In this geographic area, from 17,000, we just looked at numbers, to 10,000. Now, the question is, how long do we imagine that's going to persist? Anybody notice that economists rarely know what the hell they're talking about? On a regular basis, right? Well, the last time we had interest rates this high, the Fed funds rate, do you know how long it stayed that high? A decade. Let me ask you a question. Are you prepared for it to stay for a decade? Is your strategy appropriate to staying with this number of transactions for the next decade? No, I appreciate your honesty, right? Because I can't change it if I'm not aware of it. So that's what's happening, right? Now the question is how do I deal with it? Because I have two choices. You know what the first choice is? Stick my head in the sand. How many people know somebody sticking their head in the sand? Yeah, right? But they're still posting on Instagram. #blessed. Right? Which is ridiculous. I can stick my head in the sand or I can deal with it. You need an accurate assessment of reality in order to produce a good outcome. We just cast that, didn't we? Everybody clear on what's true? And your ability to deal with it is directly correlated with getting what you want. Who wants more deals? Yeah. I love it when people say, why'd you get into real estate? I love people. I'm like, that's disgusting. You haven't dealt with enough people. I love houses. I'm like, you know how many times I had to burn my suit because it was like a cat farm? We do this, we help people, but it's also to make money, right? So what's actually working? Well, let's logically think about this. How many people have noticed that there's less opportunities for listings? So what can we logically conclude about that? Every listing appointment you go on, you will more likely than not be what? Competing, right? So what would be a way to deal with that? Logically. Go on more points. What else? Let me ask a candid question. How many people here practice their listing presentation daily? Everybody here is apparently independently wealthy. Now, here's my question. Is that a realistic expectation in an environment with a lot less transactions? You think what's going to get it is you walk in, you're like, oh my God, you have a puppy, I have a puppy. Yay. You should hire me. That's ridiculous, right? That doesn't make any sense. So what's working are agents that are going on lots of appointments on a regular basis. Even though he's a top agent, you know what he does all the time? What do you think? Practices all the time. Do you think it's a fair competition when you go up against somebody who practices daily? No, it's not. Does that make sense? So that's one thing that's actually working right now.
What I would say as well too, just to add on that, And when I got started in the business, I struggled quite a bit. I went 6 months without a sale. I was a buyer's agent at first. And when I made the transition to the listing side, I kept getting beat out by Jim Sandoval, Eric Delgado, like every single one of them would always take the listing and I wasn't. But then Aaron asked me like a key question just to kind of go on the skills. And what he asked me is like, hey, Jose Luis, what's your competitive advantage? He said, like, what makes you different in the marketplace? And I proceeded to say something like, oh, I'm honest. I'm like hardworking.
I put my clients
I
first.
put my clients first, things like that. And he said, Jose, that's what everybody does. Everybody's honest or supposed to be honest. Everybody's hardworking. Everybody is a good human being. He's like, if you're going to compete, you got to have a competitive advantage. And I listened to this podcast called Founders. And in that podcast, they kind of give like the story of like different founders that have founded different companies like Jeff Bezos, Uber, just like different stories. And they go into like Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett strategy. Do you know what's one of the things that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger look when they're investing in businesses? They look for businesses that have a moat around their business or some sort of competitive advantage.
That's difficult to breach.
That's difficult to breach. So I asked Aaron, I said, what's your competitive advantage? And what he proceeded to tell me is like, I am the most skilled agent in my marketplace. People know when they're competing against me on a listing presentation that if I'm going on that appointment, they better bring their A game. And 95% of the time, I am going to win. He's like, I want to be feared where when people find out that they're going on a listing appointment against me, that they almost like psych themselves out.
Correct.
Like almost like, oh my God, like
I might as well not even go.
I'm going against Aaron.
Right.
And what I incorporated, and this is right next to you guys, I'm like literally like next door neighbors to every single one of you. I said, okay, that's actually a pretty good competitive advantage. I said, if I'm going to have a competitive advantage that's going to last, I said, what do I want it to be? So I adopted that mindset thanks to Aaron, where I said, all right, I am going to be the most skilled agent in my marketplace, knowing that when I go on a listing appointment and other agents find out that I'm going on a listing appointment, they're going to second guess whether they're going to want to go on that listing appointment. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I did is not only did I become very skilled, but I said, okay, how am I going to differentiate myself from other agents? So what I came up with was I came up with a solution-oriented approach. Meaning if I'm going on a listing appointment, I find out what the problem is and what they need help with, and then I sell based on that problem. So it's not like, okay, what do I offer to you? It's like, okay, tell me a little bit about what you're going through. I identify the problem, and then it's so easy to sell based on the problem. So like somebody's like, oh, like I'm having trouble getting my property ready for sale. Oh, I actually know great contractors that can help you get that property ready for sale. Someone's like, oh, I'm struggling, basically boxing up items. Hey, what if I told you I could send somebody to help you box items? Somebody has a vacant property. I'm like, hey, what if I told you that I can stage the property for free? So I came up with a differentiation strategy where I came up with a solution to almost every single problem that exists. I challenge you guys to think about, okay, what is my competitive advantage here in the marketplace? Like what makes me different? And what's my value proposition to the consumers? That way, when I'm going on appointments, what's my competitive advantage?
So in an environment where there's less opportunities, one of the ways to deal with that is to become exceptionally more skilled. And that's one thing we could be working on, because when I asked how many people do that on a regular basis, there were no hands, okay? The second thing is this niche thing. So when I said that to you guys, everybody gave me the answers of the niches. Can I ask you guys a question? How many people have intentionally and purposefully tried to cultivate one of those niches? Death, divorce, job relocation, moving to assisted living facilities, like purposefully and intentionally. Yeah, one.
Maybe.
Guys, and the two people making the most money. Like, guys, like what I'm aware of, do you see? You can all tell me that these are the places I should be looking, but we're not actually doing anything about it, right? When I started probate, you know how much I knew about that? 0. And I went to the courthouse 6 or 7 times to figure it out. And it was a pain. And I was like, oh, I could be doing other things. But then once I figured it out, I started to call them and drop the amount of people I was calling for expires, because that source was dwindling. And within 3 months, I'm taking 4 listings a month. all because I had a willingness to
Yeah.
change, right? So that's the second thing that's working, that is niches. And I know Jose, and that's one of the things he's going to talk about is, we are trained, because I think the loudest voices in the training community, and perhaps, and I mean this lovingly, older voices, are saying things like they're saying things like expired, for sale by owners, cancels, just listed, just sold. The four horsemen, okay? But what that causes you to do is to think like a real estate agent. Do you know why these guys get so many leads? They don't think like a real estate agent. They think like a wholesaler or an investor. And if you want to see lists, those guys call 15 or 20 lists. They call Liz Pendis. They call people that are behind, that they have liens for 90 days. They call, and we'll go over that. But do you see my point? Is that if I got to go where the opportunities are, and in an environment like the one that we're in with less transactions, where the opportunities are the ones that are extremely motivated. Somebody says to you, I want to sell my house because I want to get more room for my dog's backyard. That's not going to cut it, team. They're not going to be willing to do what it takes. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, the next thing that's working, let's think about this logically. If there's less transactions and there's less people that are motivated, what we do as agents never changes. How much of it we do and how we do it is what changes. So if there's less opportunities, what would that mean for the amount of people I would need to speak to on a regular basis? Double or triple? Can I ask an honest question? How many people here have doubled or tripled the amount of contacts they're making? 2. And what's interesting is you guys have in your midst somebody who has a solution to that problem. Because he has this dialer that will allow you to make 50 contacts an hour. And if you are doing that, you could make the amount of contacts in 1 week that it would normally take you 2 months to make. Now, wouldn't it logically make sense that if there's less people doing business, I would have to talk to way more people in order to find the people that need to do something? Is that an accurate assessment?
Yes.
Yeah. How many people are utilizing that tool on a regular basis? That's 4. Okay. Next thing that's working. If I need to speak to more people, I have a tool that will allow me to speak to 50 contacts an hour. Would it logically make sense to have somebody else stand next to me, use that same tool so I can double or triple the amount of contacts that I'm making? So you've had those dialers working for how long with on the Enzo dialer?
Probably like 3 weeks.
And how many listings have you taken?
3. And a wholesale.
Hey,
yeah.
And how much did you make on the wholesale?
25,000.
Just a light 25.
Yeah.
And how much do you think those commissions will equal?
Maybe like 60,000.
60?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 85,000 bucks, and you guys are like, well, that dialer's like $1,500. Like, what? How does that logically make sense? Right? These are just things to deal with what's happening. We clear on that? The next thing that's working right now, cash offers. Why would cash offers be working in this environment? Now, if somebody raises their hand and says they want a cash offer, what does that say about their motivation? Oh, so it's a mechanism to actually find people that are motivated. Why did these big platforms all have cash offer programs? Why do you think they did that?
Lead generate.
They know statistically only 5% of people accept their cash offer. Do you know what that leaves them with? Seller leads that they sell back to you for 35%. So wouldn't it logically make sense that I do that for myself? Yes. How many people have cash offer programs? Huh. Interesting. Yeah. Angel. And this guy.
And Jose.
Yeah. They also have, there's platforms that are called pay per lead. One of them is Need to Sell My House Fast. What they do is they find people through their online mechanism that get people to raise their hand and say they want a cash offer. You can call those people. Only 5% will accept the cash offer. You know what the other ones you just end up with? I'm sorry? I'm sorry, loud and proud. Listing leads. My ability to deal with reality is directly correlated with being able to accurately assess it and then come up with a plan. I believe, based on what we're experiencing, the environment that we're in isn't going to change anytime soon. So if I want to do more, I need to adjust my strategy and approach, because we were in summer and everything was yay. And now this is what? Winter. Correct? And I need a completely different strategy. So, and what's awesome is we have somebody here who's doing every single one of those things. So Jose, I think you can talk about how you're doing that.
It's funny because yesterday Angel came over and we talked about how, or let me ask this. If I asked anybody in the room, like, what your title is for your job, what would you say?
Janitor.
Yeah. Right? What would most people say?
Real estate agent.
most people would say that I'm a real estate agent. I think that it all begins with changing our identity as to what we call ourselves. And Angel, I can't take credit for this. Yesterday, he was like, you know what? Instead of I'm a real estate agent or I'm a realtor, I'm a real estate professional. Meaning like, I think most of the problem is, and I told Aaron this, I'm like, if I ever wrote a book, it would be titled Stop Thinking Like a Realtor. And the reason I would title it Stop Thinking Like a Realtor is I think as realtors, we've been programmed to think a certain way. So like, I'll give you guys an example. If we want to buy leads online, where do most realtors think about buying leads online? Zillow. What else? Realtor.com? Maybe Zillow, right? But what are most of the leads that Zillow provides? Are they buyers or sellers?
Buyers.
All right. And what do we want as agents? We want sellers? All right. So where it changed for me is Angel and I went to an event, and it was a wholesaling event. And when we went to that event, we realized that wholesalers actually have the same avatar that we have, right? So who is our ideal client? Like our target avatar. Who would that be?
Motivated.
I'm sorry, say it louder.
Motivated.
Motivated.
A
what?
motivated
Yes.
seller. What's a wholesaler's avatar?
Same thing.
Same thing.
A motivated seller. So I thought to myself, I'm like, if a wholesaler can get a motivated seller to sell them a property $100,000, $200,000 below what the market value is, I'm like, they must know something that I don't know. And what I stopped doing is I stopped going to a lot of these real estate conferences that taught me how to be a listing agent. And instead, I started going to conferences where people taught me how to find motivated sellers. And I started going to these different conferences that were wholesaler events and flipping events. And I'm probably one of the only agents going to these conferences. And I'm just like, hey, how do you find motivated sellers? They're like, oh, well, we do this and this. I'm like, how do you find motivated sellers? Just like a little kid just going up to people.
Yeah.
And what I found out is that when us as realtors, we think like, okay, Zillow, what if I told you that the same platforms exist for wholesalers? So in that book, you'll actually see a website called Need to Sell My House Fast, which is called a pay per lead platform. Very similar to Zillow, but guess what the difference is? It's a motivated
Yes.
seller versus a buyer right there. So literally it's so simple. You create an account, you go to your county, you put a top bid for the property, and they turn on a faucet and you start receiving people that are asking for cash offers versus a buyer wanting you to show them property.
And now you have to learn, which we did a thing on YouTube about it. You have to learn that conversation because that conversation is different. What's hard is our brain wants to be like, no, I can listen and get you more money. That's what our brain wants to do. Listen, listing.
Not only that, but in that list, I dropped 4 different companies that provide you guys with that. And I provided I put receipts on the thing. That way you guys can see I'm not just like fluffing you or basically telling you about something that's not really working. So for every one of those slides, we provided like receipts. So I don't remember what I provided for the Need to Sell Your House Fast or the fast home offers or the motivated leads. But I can tell you that from one of the platforms, I think we invested like maybe $3,000. We flipped the property from that lead source that costs $500 per lead. But on the 5th lead, I got a cash offer lead where the lady, I literally remember that phone call. And I called the lady. I'm like, hey, like you inquired about a cash offer. How can I help you? She goes, I want to sell my house. I want to sell my house. I'm like, okay, great. Can you tell me a little bit about the property? She goes, oh yeah, it's this and this. I'm like, if I made you an offer, how soon would you like to sell? She's like today. I'm like, how much do you want for it? She goes, 500,000. And I'm like in my seat and I'm like 500. I'm just thinking like Simi Valley, single family residence, Simi Valley.
Yeah, exactly.
You can go, I can give you guys the address and everything if you guys want to verify. Nothing at 500. So when she said that, I said, okay, I'm not sure if I'll be able to make you the offer at 500,000. I'm thinking like, dude, if she sold it to me at 500, I'm going. I'm like, do you mind if I take a look at the property? Let me ask you this. If I were to be able to make you the offer at 500,000, like, would you accept the offer? She goes, oh yeah, I would sign. I literally went over there, made her the offer at 500,000 and she signed the agreement. And I went back to my sister. I'm like, hey, I literally just got a lady who called me, said she wanted 500,000. I gave her 500,000 and we sold the property for 775 on the open market. It was a 3-month flip from start to finish. So it was like a phenomenal. So what I'm learning is that as real estate agents, we tend to box ourselves into like, I'm only a realtor. I only help people buy and sell real estate. And the moment we start opening up our mind and the moment we start opening up as the way we look at things and start calling ourselves something different instead of I'm a realtor, I'm a real estate agent, I'm a real estate professional, that's the moment that you start to see the opportunity. He says something, he goes, you don't see with your eyes.
No.
You see with your brain. So if your brain doesn't think that way, no, I can put an opportunity in front of you and you won't see it.
You won't even see it.
Because your brain doesn't recognize the opportunity.
Yeah, like the old Jose would have fought with her about how he could get her more money. And then she would have sold to a wholesaler. So what I'm aware of is by making this pivot, I believe the agents of the future will be able to add value in multiple different ways. They will be able to help you get a cash offer. They'll be able to do creative financing. They'll be able to sell the property, right? Multiple different options and choices. And you're seeing that in the marketplace pop up. Open Door. We met with agents. They lost 5 listing appointments to Open Door because they're making what? Cash offers. So wouldn't it make sense? And they're like, well, how do we compete? I'm like, make cash offers. Look at who joined us today. Bro, you're looking skinnier, bro. I see it, dude. I see it in your face. I was going to tell you on the media and just DM you, be like,